Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now, we're looking at the front pages of the newspapers this morning to share with you some of the biggest stories happening across the country. And let's head to our first paper, the Daily Independent. Speaking about Lagos demolition, Ohaneze insists state government must compensate victims. We, of course, did talk about the demolition some days ago when we had the gubernatorial candidate of the Labour Party here in Lagos State. He shared with us his opinion on on the Lagos demolition.
Yeah, but I feel, we also need to be a little careful, to not make it a tribal thing. And I think that's what I tried to establish that day. That I don't think it's good that we continue to push the tribal angle to it. If they have broken rules that they shouldn't have with, the building of or setup of those buildings, then, the law needs to, of course, take its course, and the state government needs to act. Will people also need to be questioned as to who, gave approval for those buildings before they were put there? Then yes, Lagos State government needs to also own, take the blame where it should take the blame. But making it their demolition houses for people from this tribe or that tribe, I don't think it's a good thing, and it's scary. The more of those type of conversations that we have, the worse it becomes. But I know that it is all still born out of the conversations that emerged just before the elections, and how the elections were tribalized. That's where these things are coming from. So Ohaneze getting involved, I don't know. I don't know that I'm comfortable with that, but that's the story then. Ohaneze insists that the state government must compensate victims. Fair enough.
All right, let's move away from that story. Senate reps open debate on 2024 budgets, insist on implementation. I like how they always insist. You know what it reminds me of? When they come and say, in the last administration, President Muhammadu Buhari orders the Nigerian government, the Nigerian army to do this now, immediately. That's what it sounds like. Plan for integrated national electricity policy underway on page 7. Update on Kogi gubernatorial polls. Security operatives take over INEC office in Lokoja. COP28. Countries agree on a loss damage fund. On page 7, appeal court dismisses suit seeking impeachment of Ondo deputy governor. Issue executive order for state, local government police. Afenifere tells Tinubu. Senate threatens to involve anti-graft agencies to recover 135 billion naira intervention funds. Final story, we won't tolerate sabotage of drug war, Marwa warns, on page 8. That's all that we have on the Daily Independent. So let's go to our next paper.
All right, away from Daily Independent, on the Punch newspapers this morning, so we can find over here. It says, new wage begins April. Federal government votes 24 trillion naira for salaries. Interesting. Labour, federal government begin talks. Current wage regime expires March ending, says Minister. Federal government laments fiscal deficit. Reps condemn high MDA salaries, demand ICPC probe. The same reps that, of course, are buying cars, of more than 100 million naira for themselves, are the ones condemning high MDA salaries. Interesting. All right, still on the Punch this morning. CBN fund, Senate threatens to order gas companies probe. Shaibu free to contest Edo governorship, says
Really? Is he really free?
Well, he is. I mean, he can't be stopped. But the political games will definitely continue all the way to the elections. Federal government pays 585 million naira fines, begin nationwide prisoners release. And also COP22, Tinubu bids King Charles, Nigeria, others eye 261 billion naira fund. And also Jackpot, federal government urges varsities to produce more doctors. Assembly drops suit against Aida Tiwa.
That's a very funny one.
Embraces peace. Very funny, actually.
So they just go to produce them more in a factory.
In a factory.
How many pints of human flesh do you need to produce doctors?
It's interesting because there's a reason. The more you produce, the more
the Jackpot. This is the same government that did say that we did not have problem with doctors. We didn't have problem. I think it was the Minister of Employment and Labour that we do not have shortage of medical doctors.
Let's quickly bring in Adebowale Jeff Johnson is going to be our guest this morning for the newspapers. Good morning. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. Let me get your thoughts first of all on the issues in Ondo State. The crisis between Aida Tiwa and, of course, Governor Akeredolu. There's been back and forth, there's been a court case. There's been also stories that the president even had to step in, and all that. What do you think is going on?
Okay, so I think that we're in a nation where it seems like a certain class of people can get away with certain things. And if we're not careful, we will continue to breed more issues in our political class where people can just decide to do what they choose to do. And they can look for loopholes in the laws and then use that as a way of, trying to manipulate the system. This is my own summary to the whole conversation. I believe His Excellency the Governor of the state has some sort of understanding around the law, and I think he's using it to his advantage, even if it is not beneficiary to the larger populace.
Yeah, and of course, this is a governor that hasn't really been seen in public since he returned to Nigeria, from his medical trip. So, I mean, isn't that a picture of current day Nigeria and the realities of how, we are running states and running the country, where someone who is not fiscally fit, is still, of course, first of all, refusing to step down and hand over power to someone who's seemingly stronger. But at the same time, there are still political gimmicks here and there to frustrate the deputy governor.
So like I said again, I think His Excellency is a man that understands the law and understands, some sort of, ways to make use of the law to his benefit. So if he wants to continue to enjoy the what's this word now? To enjoy the benefit of being the governor of the state, he wants to continue to enjoy the position and what it gives to him. So even if he is incapacitated, in as much as the law has stated that he still has the capacity to at least do something, he is still legally the course of the Constitution does not necessarily unseat him as the governor, because at least even if he doesn't come out in public, he's still being able to say, I can still carry out my duty as the governor. So I think that's the bone of the contention here, that there are loopholes, and these are some of the things that we need to look at for, and then say, how do we then use this as a way of correcting some of those things in our constitution that needs to be corrected, so that somebody is not sitting back and using it, because that's what I see. I don't think it is very political beyond the fact that he's seeing loopholes and is using the loopholes in the Constitution to remain in power, despite the fact that he knows by himself that he is not the best man for the job.
All right, let's move away from Ondo State and this paper, the Daily Trust, to the next paper and see what the front pages of the next paper are saying. And on the front page of the Daily Trust, the big story there says, how to get 2024 budget right, according to economists. Proposal low compared to South Africa and Ghana others, according to the LCCI. Nigerians not interested in figures, but find out what I want to believe that they're interested in results, according to Ruwani. Senators reps consider Tinubu's 27.5 trillion naira budget without details. Navy arrests 2 ships crew for illegal fishing. 1,001 students on Kano State government's foreign scholarship departing to their respective destinations. 9 months after, Lagos Airport International Runway remains closed. Nigerian nurse in UK sacked, deported over prayer for dying patient. Villagers flee as soldiers leave Kaduna community. And I'd like you to speak on how to get 2024 budget right according to economists. Is that a dream? Is that lofty wishing,
The interesting thing is that just yesterday, I was speaking to a group of young guys, young Nigerians, in a closed-door conversation, and we were looking at I believe the 27 trillion naira budget. And we were asking critical questions around what should government do. In fact, the first question is, we need to see the budget in its entirety and then see what is there to be injected into the economy as a way of stimulating the economy. what is there to to service debt, and what is there to actually pay for overhead, running government. And so if I break that down into the three key areas, there's nothing we can do about our debt, because over the last few years a lot has been borrowed, and we have not seen the impact of the borrowing, and that's why Nigerian economy, the way it is suffering. And I was having a conversation with one of the guys who as we speak, he has a lot of Nigerians in the diaspora that he manages their finance, and so he was saying a lot of Nigerians are actually moving their funds out of the country because of the free fall of naira against the dollar. And I was discussing this even in a larger spectrum, that to make naira strong, it is not just about the naira to dollar swap, but more about how we strengthen the economy and reduce the impact of dependence upon the dollar, both in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole. And so if Nigeria wants to get out of this conundrum and say, how do you finance that budget? Clearly, there's going to be a lot around crude sales, and there's nothing we can do about that, because that seems to be the only, if not, the only thing. I know that, yes, we do some other exports and all of that, but not at the large scale that, we do with crude. So crude is our major source, but we can do something else. And so for me, the focus would then be, let's look into agriculture and bring back the old days. Benue, for example, record more losses of food produce than what goes into the market. Is anybody actually looking at that critically and saying, how do we solve that problem? Some other states that produce, farmers don't go to farm anymore. We used to hear of tomato juice, but do we still hear of tomato juice again? Kano is there, and a lot of tomatoes go to waste in Kano. And there was a time we were talking about a particular brand trying to do tomato paste in Kano. What's going on about that? How much are we bringing in technology? It's not about machineries, and we're saying we have to buy tractors and all of that. There are new technologies in hydroponics, and and so many other ways that we can actually produce vegetables, that we can grow at large scale. I believe a barrel of palm oil is much more expensive than a barrel of crude oil. And we have palm oil. Malaysia came to Nigeria, and now they are the largest when it comes to palm oil. What are we doing about some of those sectors, and what are we doing about injecting capital, injecting cash into the economy to stimulate? So we need to solve the issue of security. We need to be able to mop the production of food produce to the point where Nigerians can earn naira in these hubs, so that it will be easier for Nigeria as a country that aggregates all of this, instead of wasting away, can then take them and export them to actually get FDIs. Then finally, another thing we need to look at is the international organizations that are here in Nigeria. The question is that most of them, and I don't want to mention any brand name, but most of those brand names from South Africa and from other countries take out a lot of the finance, a lot of the revenue they generate locally here in Nigeria. And the question then beats me is that, why do we allow so much all those funds to be moved out of the country? Meanwhile, we can actually retain those earnings in the country.
Yeah.
So there are clearly things that we need to do to actually stimulate the economy and bring Nigeria out of this conundrum.
Yeah, policy changes need to, definitely happen. So there's two more stories that I would share. I'm not sure if we're going to go to another paper, but on the Daily Trust, two stories that I would like that you get your thoughts out on with the time that we have. The first one there, top right, it says villagers flee as soldiers leave Kaduna community. Every now and then, lately we've started to hear bits and pieces of security challenges once again. With terror attacks here and there in northern Nigeria. There's that story, and then the one right next to it, which I find very interesting. A Nigerian nurse in the UK sacked and deported over prayer for dying patients. So let's quickly have your thoughts on these two stories. and see if we still have time for another paper.
Okay. So I wouldn't say I'm a man of faith. I'm not a religious man, but I'm a man of faith, and
Okay.
I believe that sometimes it is important to bring in our faith to the fore too. And if we understand where our faith is and we believe in our faith, I don't think we should be scared to actually express it publicly. And if we're persecuted for it, I think we just need to go back to the God that we serve and let him sort us out. Again, the woman was sacked, deported, but now she's become a national hero. However you look at it, everybody's talking about her, because just yesterday, yes, where I was actually, we were having a conversation around her. So now she's a hero of faith. So I don't think that it is too bad, but it also teaches us something else. Again, the faith that we talk about was brought to us. And the question then again is, if the same people who brought the same faith to us would treat us this way, it beats us to then ask critical questions around who we are as a people and what we must believe and how we must go about our way of life. Then talking about insecurity, it has been, and I said this on another platform at the beginning of this government, that it is one of the very key things that this current administration and anybody who had become president of Nigeria should focus on. Critically, there are solutions that we can deploy in technology, and not in technology as to drones and all of that, but as to first responder and having to help to give people a sense of security. If soldiers, in fact, if you tell me, and if I live in a community and soldiers have been attacked, police stations have been attacked, and suddenly the barracks or the soldiers are leaving, I would also join them in migrating, because clearly that means I am not secured. If the security architecture, that is supposed to give me a sense of security is actually leaving, then I should also carry my bag and leave. So Nigeria and the Nigerian president and the NSA and the DSS and the army and the army intelligence need to do more about securing Nigerians.
Yeah. All right. Adebowale Jeff. I don't know why that name is.
Adebola, because you have an Adebola
here, right?
New Central anchor.
Thanks a lot for stopping by. And of course,
thank you for having me once again.
Speaking with you. Talk soon.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You as well, and happy new month.